All right, welcome in.
It's another beautiful day.
It is a beautiful day,
Beautiful
and
day.
we've got more tough conversations. So,
Yeah.
you know, before we get started, if y'all are listening, share this out. Let's get as many people in our comment section as we can, because we will interact with you, and that engagement is really awesome. So, if you're watching, share it out to your friends. Get them in the get them in the lobby. Let's make it happen.
There we go. Wow. I mean, not only this, but why don't you go ahead and just start off by letting people know who's able to bring this podcast live to them on Thursday nights.
All right,
It's a
yeah. So
Friday.
the
This is
Friday
special.
night tonight. Yeah, it's a little bit off, but I say some Fridays are good. So we really want to thank the American Legion, Post 135, over in just historic downtown Savannah. So they are at 1108 Bull Street. They are a member of the largest veteran service organization in the nation. They were founded on the principles of service to our veterans and our community, state, and nation. Their membership is open to any veteran who has served honorably and to active duty service members. They are home to the local 1110, Betty Bombers, Brighter Day, Centennial Bean, Lee Chai, and their bar is open to the public. They hold several events in their ballroom each year. And guess what, Sean? If you are in Savannah or you're thinking about renting a space in Savannah, you can rent the ballroom at the American Legion in historic downtown Savannah.
Nice.
So, yes. So if you're interested in that,
It's open to
go
the public
talk.
to rent.
Open to the public, absolutely.
Rent. Yep.
So go talk to our the commander. His name is Mike Ball. Great guy. Go talk to him. Go talk to any one of his officers over there. Outstanding organization. And thank you to the American Legion for being the title sponsor this year and making this happen.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, why don't you get us started, brother? We got a pretty
Yeah.
exciting show. I mean, it's gonna be, tough. There's a lot of discussions around kind of just the vicious cycle of how self-destruction happens. But then later on in the show, we've actually got a special guest that's going to join us much later in the second half. So,
Yes, we
uh,
do.
yeah, just go ahead and
Yep.
let's
Yeah.
crack into it.
Yeah. So before we start this, we are saying this is a sensitive topic. And if this topic feels heavy, just know that it's okay. And if you are having these thoughts, know that we are not the emergency hotline. So if you're having these thoughts, please dial 988, call 911, get emergency help, because we are not. Yes, we're discussing the topics, but if it's an emergency situation, you need to get help immediately. That's what you need to do. And then just know too that support is there, and that you don't have to carry this all alone. And so we are talking about something that people live through quietly every day. And for me, I've lived through this when I was trying to recover from PTSD. And that's this vicious cycle of what we deem to be a survival mode. And it's not always the dramatic moments that people tend to notice, right? It's not all, which sometimes it's not noticeable at all. But it's you start to slow down. It's that quieter kind of struggle that nobody really sees behind your four walls that can really feel like you're imprisoned in your four walls of your house. And it's just, for a lot of veterans like myself and you and anyone that have served this nation, right? And a lot of people in general, that pain doesn't present itself in obvious ways all the time, right? It can be routine. It can be a routine vicious cycle of things we are doing just to get by every single day.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know,
we talk a lot about with the vicious cycle. This is kind of a carry on from our last podcast, because it's just so much to cover that we wanted to kind of bring this back to you guys. But we talk a lot about trauma, PTSD, depression, anxiety. But sometimes, those words are just saturated and just used way too often, and kind of causes people to kind of tune out or dismiss it like, oh, they're just dealing with their crazy vet, or whatever.
Right.
But that's only a piece of it. What does it really mean to feel stuck, in this cycle?
Right.
What does survival mode actually feel like? And we can't get out of the stuck mode because we're in that surviving. We're just constantly just going back and forth and reliving the same experiences in our head. And James, I know you've spoken a lot about living through, your own vicious cycle, and through different times in the middle of the night, during the day. We've been quite a few times in each other's presence, and there's little nuances, right, that you deal with differently than I do. But what does that actually look like for you? I guess is the big key for it.
And I think let's go ahead and what this looks like for me could be different than what it looks like for people listening. With what it presented in mind was the scary part was everything looked normal. I was still going to work every day. I was still going to the gym every day. I was, looking like I was perfectly functioning just fine to the person who didn't know me or didn't see what was going on behind closed doors. I was still, getting up, going to work, going to the gym, doing everything that I really enjoy doing. Nothing really changed. I didn't change my behaviors. But the dangerous part of this is what nobody saw after I went to work, after I went to the gym, after I came home. I unfortunately turned to a vice that I'm not proud of, but a lot of veterans and first responders have. And it was pills. It was my sleeping pills. Because for my, I planned my day meticulously. I knew when I got off of work. I knew when I was going to go to the gym. I knew when I was going to eat dinner. And I knew what time I was supposed to take my medicine to go to bed. And depending on how bad the day was, I might take extra not pain pills, but extra sleeping pills to shorten that process of that 30-minute window of once I take it, I know I've only got 30 minutes and the day's over and I can suffer tomorrow. But the problem with this is I just didn't do this one day. I did this over and over and over, this vicious cycle for years, for 2 to 3 years. And that is extremely detrimental to your mental health. You don't see it, but it slowly starts eating away. Just slowly just starts eating away at who you are. You're no longer living anymore. You're barely just surviving. And and once it starts getting to those severe levels, you stop making plans. So if it wasn't my job, my gym routine, or my meal prep, I did not do it. Like I isolated from friends, isolated from family, isolated from my kids. I ruined a lot of relationships during this isolation period trying to deal with this.
Now, during your isolation period where you were talking about like going through all these things, like how many months or years was that cycle for you?
Oh, wow. So I went through exposure therapy to reintegrate back to society, to have some kind of normal functioning life. And that was about 2.5 years. So for at least 2.5 years, I lived this vicious cycle every single day. And I can even tell you, I'm not proud of it, but I had a made bed. I had a house to myself, and I slept in the living room floor on an air mattress with a pillow because I didn't even live a normal life inside these four walls. I didn't sleep in my own bed. None of that. I was this vicious cycle completely took control of everything I did for 2.5 years.
Do you know, like through therapy and such, do you know really what kind of brought you to that point to where you would rather do that versus just go climbing in a comfortable bed that was secure and safe? Like, were you able to process or work through the reasons behind that?
I just felt like I didn't deserve it. I felt like it was easier for me to take way too many sleeping pills, lay on an air mattress, and just wait for 30 minutes for them to kick in than to have a normal life. It was just easier for me to do that. And because no one was going to understand it, God help someone if they did see that vicious cycle. If they would they understand that vicious cycle? Would they understand the how you almost your self-value and your self-worth diminishes a little bit every time you take one more sleeping pill, or you cancel one more plan, or you cancel one more thing you like to do. You're inside your head, your self-worth is diminishing constantly, and it's really hard to deal with that.
Now, through therapy and such, at what point, or was there a part, if you feel comfortable sharing this, but like, was there a part in therapy where you had like an aha moment of like, wow, I do deserve this, and I'm not going to do this anymore? Was it like a light switch, or was it something that you gradually was like, tomorrow I'm going to sleep in the bed. All right, I'll make a little bit further. Like what about that vicious cycle ended up changing for you during therapy?
I don't think it was more therapy. I think it was more therapy helped. Yes, exposure therapy was very tough, but it got me to where I could at least be in society again. The biggest thing for me was, once again, one of the reasons I was in anger management and going through all of this stuff, because it was court ordered. I didn't always have I got in trouble with the law and did some things I wasn't proud of and ruined relationships. And because of that, because I could not control my own emotions, my own anger, I had to attend some of these things that were court ordered by a judge. And I used to look at myself as a weakness for going through that. I used to look at myself as a failure for going through some of that kind of stuff. But when I look back at that, if it hadn't have been for that wake up call of having to attend those mandated court trainings and stuff, I wouldn't be sitting here today. Like, it took something that severe for me to want to live again and want to have a relationship with my friends again, and just want to be some kind of normal and feel like I was
almost like you were being voluntold, like when you were doing things in the Army, right? Like, let's break it down to that. Something as simple as that, right? They provided a structure for you, whether you wanted to do it or not. You made decisions, you faced the consequences, but you had a structured program that then allowed you to kind of like fall back into something normal. And it seems like to me that like that structure is what kind of allowed you to kind of blossom, per se.
Well, I think what we need to highlight here is it's okay if you've a veteran or first responder and you found yourself in trouble with the law due to your emotions. Not to say it's great, not saying I'm advocating for that, but I think that's happened a lot. And I can't believe I've told the people listening that, because I don't really talk about the fact that I have had issues with law enforcement, and not really issues, but with because I couldn't control my emotions. And it took me mandated appearances to figure out that was not the life I wanted to live. And, you start waking up every day with a new passion, or with at least of what you don't want to be anymore. That old shell of a person that used to be. Now, how do you make it where you get rid of that shell? And structure helped. But you want to know what the biggest thing that helped me get out of my own head and get my life back again?
Absolutely.
Helping others.
Yeah.
When I started Heroes in the Sky and started advocating for families and doing this work in the mental health sector, is when I really started to see that there's a higher value, there's a higher purpose. And then if I can get that wake up call, and I can, I am valuable, I am needed here, And there's people that have been through the same things I have. They've been in trouble with the law because due to PTSD, and they feel like they're not that adequate of a person because they've had past troubles. That's not true. It just means at one time you were a human and you had weaker thoughts, and those weaker thoughts won, but they don't have to win all the time.
Yeah, I guess in some ways it's kind of humbling though too, right? That it brings you back to what the reality is. But I do believe that somewhere deep in there, yes, you have to want to change and such. But I do believe that the therapy and the things that you learned in therapy to recognize either the triggers or the patterns of falling back into those behaviors, like that prevent you from wanting to keep doing that. They've got to somehow. I mean, do they sit in the back of your mind consciously, or is it more now where it's become a habit and it's just subconsciously?
I think they always stay in your mind. It's in the subconscious now. But one of the things that I tell people is the route I had to go through was not ideal. It was almost forced because I was going down a path that I was not going to ever recover from if I would have continued. And so the type of therapy you choose, the type of exposure you choose, the type of re-engagement with your community that you choose, all these things matter. Mine took the most severe route I possibly could, and that's exposure therapy. And I will tell anybody that that therapy works, but it will test you mentally. It will test you any amount of emotion you think you felt, you're going to feel 10 times more than that. And it really takes a strong person to get through that. But
Michael in the comments actually literally said something similar to that, right? But the self-sabotage phase, some of us just can't get past. And I believe that that's that coming from personal experiences where we've all done the self-sabotage in order to maintain some level of chaos. Once you come home, you don't have the chaos. Let's create our own, right? To then put the fires out. And I know for me personally, that was something that I struggled with for a long time, but I would never admit that that's what I was chasing.
Well, and here's the thing: you talk about chaos and self-sabotage. Who else does that affect? Our spouse, everybody around us, our spouses, our kids, our loved ones. They all see that. They all experience that trauma, because that's what it is. We're creating chaos and trauma because we're not okay with things going right. Like, I don't deserve for things to go right. Let me create more trauma. Let me create another argument. Let me whatever it may be. That self-sabotage is huge, because within self-sabotage you start putting distance between families. And then families don't talk as they should. And then we go down this spiral that's so hard to recover from.
How many years has it been since you've been through the exposure therapy?
2019 was the last. Yeah, 2019.
So let's think about our significant others, right? Wouldn't it be interesting to interview them at some point to be like, what are some of the things that you've, for outside looking in, because you're there day to day with it, right? They get the person that we are now, and some of them have probably lived through some of the things that we've experienced and done. But it would be interesting to kind of just see their perspective of how or what they saw in us that kept us. Kept with us, if that makes sense, right? During the chaos, they had seen something in us that was beautiful in that regards.
Yeah, they had to, but then they need to talk about their how hard that was mentally for them to not only protect themselves and the household, but then protect their veteran that they love the most. And that I think that would be
at the end of the day, that is the vicious cycle, right? It's us creating the chaos and the damage and the destruction, putting it onto the people and transferring it to the ones that we love the most. And just because we're here, still, upright and vertical, right, doesn't mean that the chaos doesn't leave just as much of a damaging effect on others to, you know, that some of the other more serious choices that make.
Yeah, you talk about that. That chaos that we create that trickles down to our families also trickles down to our kids. And
Yep.
so our kids inherit the trauma that we put on them. And I can tell you with a doubt right now that I'm very open about the fact that I have two children I don't have a good relationship with because I couldn't even control my own emotions, even to be a functional human for 2.5 years. And that's not an excuse. It's not, but I wasn't there for those kids.
That's the reality, right?
The reality of it is my trauma fell on those kids and completely created a separation that I don't think we've ever recovered from. This is a severe issue. It can create toxic conditions in families, and just isolation and despair, and then once you start talking about isolation and despair, you lose all the structure which we look for, because we start just losing our thoughts and losing our composure, and then it bleeds all the way into our families. And no one ever.
That's the sad part about it, and that's the reality of it too.
Yeah.
Like, you know, a lot of us veterans, you know, and those that are listening, you know, we can be the change to break the cycle, to break the stigma, to, you know, but we have to want to do that too for everybody, and look in the mirror and be honest and say, you know what, I can't do this alone. You know, it's not the exact same routines that we all go through. It's not the exact same shared experiences, because we all experience the same situation differently. But the feeling underneath is often the same, of hopelessness, despair, frustration, anxiety, you know, loss of family, you know, our military family, right? And then loss of our actual family. And then let's look at it from the standpoint of, we always want better for our children than what we had. But then what happens if this chaos that we've created also encourages our children to follow in our footsteps, join the military and such? I mean, it's just a problem, or that we just need to be honest with ourselves about.
Well, and so this is really big. You could go down so many rabbit holes here. I'm not going to, but just with the kids, because we talk about suicide rates with adults. We talk about veteran suicide rates being 44 a day, which I want to say a lot more people are using the 44 veteran rate a day. Now, Heroes in the Sky, we've been using that based off studies for 2+ years. But I'm excited to see that other organizations are picking up on the fact that 22 is not the real number. But that, you start talking about the suicide rates with the veterans and the parents, and then that bleeds, all this isolation and trauma dumping on these children leads to the children's suicide rates and the widow's suicide rates and the mother's suicide rates. All of those suicide rates no one's even talking about. They're only focused on the veteran suicide rate that everybody sees. You're not looking at the after effect of the families who are dying by suicide because of the trauma they were exposed to. Or, let's be honest, when you're talking about especially kids and military families, they have access to guns. They have access to a stigma that where you can't ask for help, because if dad's been in the Army for 20 years, oh, dad never asked for help. Like, they don't see people asking for help because it's not taught. And then the other thing is frequent relocation. They cannot establish a support system in a school, because they get comfortable. They make all these friends, and then they're leaving again for another PCS or whatever.
Every 3 years.
Our kids get caught in a lot of this trauma dumping, and it does create some elevated risk for suicide.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
I mean, Michael says it right now, learning to that it's okay to not be okay, but also learning how to utilize our battle buddy network. And it doesn't have to be a battle buddy you serve with. It's, it's about connecting with somebody that you feel comfortable with, that is going to also tell you you're being a little bit of I don't want to say drama queen, right? But you're being a little bit, you're being a little bit dramatic, right? And hold you accountable to a standpoint of like, hey, yes, crappy things happen, but what are you going to do about it to change it so that you don't keep reliving the same cycle day in and day out?
Well, not only that, what are you going to do to make your kids' lives better? Like, if you know that trauma dumping and putting all this trauma on the kids has adverse health conditions and elevated risk for suicide, when are we going to stand up and say, you know what, I want to do better for myself to protect my family and my kids. Let's protect the exposure that we risk for our spouses. Let's protect the exposure we risk for our kids, our parents that have to deal with trauma and PTSD because of ours. Let's start thinking about that, right? But we're about an hour something in, and we've got a really fantastic guest.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's what we're going to do. Here in about 2-3 minutes, we're going to break for a commercial, and we come back. James, why don't you go ahead and let people know who's going to be joining us in this second portion of this?
Yeah, so and he's going to come in and do a better introduction, but I am very pleased before he gets in here. This is a very dear friend of mine. John Ring has supported myself and my family ever since Heroes in the Sky started. He's pushed our stuff out. I've known John Ring from another organization and several other organizations in the community that's always supported me. Just the fact that anytime I need something, I pick up the phone and he's doing something beneficial to help others. He does run an organization called walkforvets.org, and they walk nationwide across the country to raise awareness for mental health and issues surrounding suicidal loss and just that military stigma of asking for help. And so I can't count the mileage he's probably walked into to bring awareness to this. But I can say when D'Angelo, our co-founder, when unfortunately we got all the news, one of the first phone calls I got was John Ring, making sure I was okay, and because he knew how much of a loss D'Angelo was. So we're going to go to commercial break, but after that we're going to bring in John Ring, fantastic human, fantastic following. He's got a good mission behind what he does, and he's got a personal connection to what we're talking about. We'll let him get into. So, let's go to a commercial break, and then we'll be right back.
Can you hear me? I don't want to hear myself tonight. Yes, sometimes I fight so many battles that you'll never see. And I know you've been fighting too, just like me. There's no place we can go where our hearts stay whole. Your love still runs through our veins. We Tell the stories, keep the flame alive. You gave us reason to survive.
But all right. So we are back. We got kind of off guard trying to catch a few sips of refreshments and everything else. But, you know.
Throw Punch Thursday. It's Friday.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in our guest.
Yep.
John Ring. And we'll give it time. Come on.
It's thinking. It's thinking. It's thinking.
It's thinking, right?
Wow. Might have to set up. Make sure it's on the three.
Yep, I got you. And I don't. Here we are. There he is.
There we go. And then just drop this.
Right. And then we can just drop. Remove the stage. Okay. So yeah, sorry. You see a little bit different. Why am I in the big picture? Holy crap!
I think you got to remove yourself, and we got to pop ourselves out and then pop back in, so that way John's in the big box.
Yeah, let's
see if we can do that real quick.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Can you guys hear me?
We absolutely can. Yes.
I can't hear you.
Can anybody else in the chat hear us speaking?
Add. Okay. How about now? Can everybody hear?
There we go. I got sound now.
There we go. Right. And you're in the big box. That's where we want you.
I can't hear James, though. I can hear Sean.
You can hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't hear James.
Why? Hold on. It says.
I hear you.
Yeah. I hear everybody.
Yeah, I can hear John as well. All right. Let's see. Cynthia in the comments, can you hear everybody? Not everybody on speaking at once. Technical.
Hello. Can Michael, can you hear us all? Because it's showing I have full audio.
Yeah. That's just crazy. Drop.
Here. Let me see something. Edit mic settings. Let's figure this out. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Can you hear me, John? No.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, why is it doing that? I'm gonna remove myself from the thing first and then
So you gotta love. There's always a new challenge every week with
every week.
Can you hear him now?
I can't. James, is he talking? I can't see.
Can you hear me now?
Nope, I can't hear him.
What?
I got Sean loud and clear, but I don't have James at all.
All right, what about now?
I mean, I it's crazy because I can hear you and he can hear me, but he can't hear you. Now you're on mute now.
How about now? Hello?
I mean, I got you, but
yeah, that's the weirdest thing because I can
hear
crazy. Everyone.
That is the craziest thing ever. Yeah. Yeah. So why don't we go ahead and I'll kind of like translate for all of us a little bit. We'll work back and forth. But but can anybody in the chat can the people in the chat hear all of us? Because I'll then ask the questions, and such. But first and foremost, welcome and thanks for joining us on this Friday evening. I know there's a lot of things people could be doing, but we appreciate your time for just tuning in and spreading the message. But first and foremost, tell us a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind.
Well, my name's John. Served in the U.S. Army. Listed late in life. Infantry. 34 years old, enlisting in infantry. Got called Grandpa for many years. And I felt like Grandpa for many years. When I enlisted, I saw I was older. I was there. It is. There it is. There it
That's
is.
from '96. Okay. That's from '96.
There it is. Well, yeah, you were way before me. Way before me. I decided to do it as an old man. Enlisting later in life, I was kind of set in my ways, and I saw guys my age that were all, master sergeants, staff sergeants, just suffering, in silence, and understanding not from being there or doing it, but just being so much experienced in life. I just saw the struggle, and oftentimes, I'd find myself as an E4 sitting down talking with an E7, about their struggles and things that they experienced. And it just it didn't sit well with me, that we weren't doing more. And, you look around, and this is back in 2018, and there's lots of organizations out there that, are active and helping, and, but there's so many gaps, and those gaps are closing. They are closing every single day, with organizations, popping up and doing their part. But back then, it was just a little bit more scarce than it is today. And I started digging into vet court in Chatham County in Savannah, and I saw a lot of veterans just slipping through the cracks, getting caught up into, crime based off of addiction or just coping mechanisms to get through the day, get tripped up. They end up in the system, and the system just eats them up. The service doesn't mean anything. You're just a statistic. You're just a number. And so seeing that at the time, I was politically engaged. I navigated politics and got involved in all that stuff. And I utilized some of those resources that I made to get involved and start talking to judges and the sheriff's department and vet court and saying, hey, look, why are we not doing more? Why are we not closing these gaps and helping these veterans? They were keeping them in the county system rather than letting them go to the VA. Even they're 100% disabled, and they're just blocking them from going to the VA because they need numbers. They want to show this, they want to show that. And so fighting, a couple of veterans that I worked with, and I won't say any names, but they were able to break out of that system, go to the VA. And one of them is like, she's an instructor, she's a physical fitness instructor, changed her life. Does she still have hiccups? Absolutely. We all do, so it just made me want to keep digging. And that's what I did. And October 1st, 2019, I started a cross-country walk from Tybee Island, Georgia, to Santa Monica, California, to raise awareness to all veterans issues. It was 2,462 miles. I was originally planning on starting myself, and that was the plan. I had a late friend of mine. He had just passed not too long ago. Chris Hicks. He was a Marine veteran, and he reached out to me the night before and was like, dude, I saw your walk, man. I want to do this with you. I'm going. I'll meet you there. I'm coming from Florida. And he did. This guy showed up with like suitcases to walk across the country. And I looked at him. I was like, what are you doing, dude? but his heart was there. He came out, he walked with me for 3 days. His feet fell off. And he didn't, unfortunately he didn't go with me the rest of the way, but very supportive. But I navigated this walk alone, reaching out to veterans, stopping into VFWs, American Legions, just talking to random people, like, just walking down the street, sleeping under bridges, outside of churches, wherever I could, and I got into Montgomery, Alabama, and I was freezing cold. I was wearing shorts. It was the first cold day of the trek for me. And I saw flags flying, and it was American Legion state headquarters. And walked in there, and that changed the entire dynamic of the walk. They asked me what the mission was, what I was doing, pulled me in, and that was it. Had American Legion support all the way across the country. Walked right into COVID. Nobody expected that. I was in New Mexico, had to take a break for a while because everybody was in hiding and I wasn't really, helping anybody. But you finished that walk on June 14th, 2020, Army's birthday, Flag Day.
Cool.
And then we just kept going. I ended the walk with 3 other veterans, a retired Master Sergeant, Jimmy Matthews, 25 years. And so for me, I never claim I don't have PTSD. I don't, not from war combat. I had deployments canceled. I never had to live that. I lived it in other ways. I lived it. I was a corrections officer years ago. I had childhood trauma, and I grew up in the city. I grew up in the streets. I lived a pretty hard life. But Jimmy brought a dynamic to the walk that was multiple deployments, PTSD, survivor's guilt, all of these things that, we talk about. Multiple, I couldn't even tell you, and I'm not speaking for Jimmy, but he found himself in dark places, and he still does today. But we just kept things going. Walk for Vets. We've walked in 35 states to this point for over 6,000 miles. I don't claim all those miles. We've walked at 22 state capitals. We did 22 states in 22 consecutive days. 2.2 mile walks, just raising awareness, and mostly to end veteran suicide, to bring awareness to that. And that's how I met James. We were out there, and we're doing the same thing, fighting the same mission. And I love you, James. I know I can't hear you, and we can't, correspond, but it's been. And I'm a little rusty at this. I'm telling you, like,
the good thing about this, dude. The good thing about this is, just be relaxed, because the people watching,
I'm still
people tuned in. It's just about
I'm still choked up by your commercial, your ads, man. Like, it's very it hits home a lot differently, and I it's been a struggle, and so for years, since 2019, my mission has been helping veterans. I've worked with sheriff's departments. I've gone to veterans in crisis in the moment, not the aftermath, but in the moment. I've sat with veterans that, had a gun in their hand, sitting across from them, where the sheriff's department didn't want to deal with it. They didn't want to go in. Send me in. It's either going to end 3 ways. Either, unfortunately, I'm going to get shot. We all know the other way it can go, or we're going to get this veteran safe, and we're going to get him out of this situation. And I found myself in that situation with other people multiple times, and I commend all of them. But it's hard, advocating. And you guys were talking, and I was on here listening to you guys. Advocating is hard. It really wears you down. As a veteran, having this trauma, and then also being in that, I commend you guys, because it's twice as hard, but because advocating, hearing all the worst stories, being there, having your phone on constantly, always making yourself ready to help somebody, it eats at you, you know, and then having to do that yourself and keep fighting, it is just very tiresome. And so I commend not just you guys, everybody out there that is out there doing their part to help veterans. I commend you because it's not easy.
So when you
Can y'all
started
hear me
your-
now?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
No, he cannot.
I
What
cannot
is
hear
going-
James.
I don't understand what's going on.
Look, we had a technical issue last time, and
It's
Well,
always
If he wants to
something.
type in the chat bar,
yeah, you know. So let's talk about your organization real quick. You know, we have it up on the screen, so thanks for adding that in there. But what about, like, what is your primary mission with, you know, walkforvets.org? Is it about raising awareness? Is it about, you know, like, tell us a little bit more, so then also how people can find you.
so the one thing about walking is you're being healthy. The next thing you're doing is you're giving yourself time to walk next to somebody and listen, talk, converse. Um, we oftentimes get tripped up in the quick messaging and the phone calls and the technology and, you know, in and out of people's lives, you know. And the one thing that I found where you really don't have a choice is being on a 20-mile walk next to somebody where you're getting to know that person and you're hearing their story. They're hearing your story. I have a very good friend of mine, Mike McCarthy. He walked with me the last day in Santa Monica on June 14th. Army vet, medic, struggling. I think Mike messages me like every other week, every 2 weeks. You know, he's like, dude, you saved my life, man. I love you. That walk, it changed his life. You know, it really brought him in, because a lot of times, you know, we get lost in our purpose, you know, our mission,
Yeah.
like what we're doing. And so being out there and being a part of something where you're moving around, like if I got 15, 20 people walking with me, I make it a point. I'm all over the place. I want to get to know as many people as possible. So the mission, you know, it's just about the, you know, bringing the people together, everybody, you know, whether it's family members or veterans or, you know, whatever, hearing about people's lives, what's going on, where are your struggles, and knowing that you're not alone. That's the biggest thing. We got to know, like, veterans need to know that whatever you're feeling, you're not alone. And the walks have really done that. And so, as far as finding me, I'm kind of coming out of what I would call a retirement. Um, 2 years ago, I was like, all right, I'm taking a break. I'm done, you know. And I actually, there's a video of me in Anthony, New Mexico, on the border of Texas and Anthony, New Mexico. And I get in my car and I turn around, I'm gone. I'm like, I'm done, you know. But my life changed on January 7th of this year, and it's pulled me out of that, you know, because I'm a person that I believe that I got to take something that is so horrific and turn it into something positive. So,
Yeah. If you don't mind, you know, if we talk about that a little bit, and, you know, and how that kind of is refueling, you know, your calling and purpose. And, you know, first and foremost, brother, it sucks, and I'm sorry that you have to go through this as a family and as a father. And, you know, we're here, and
yeah.
you know, obviously we'll make sure you get my contact as well. But, you know, there's the unfortunate part is there's so many families out there that have gone through this and are going through this. Like, how does what you went through, how does that fuel the next portion of your mission?
So I didn't really mention, you know, what happened. So my oldest son, Trey, and my younger son, they both, Wyatt serves now. He's at the Citadel, but my older son, Trey, right out of high school, enlisted in the Army, 13 Foxtrot, and deployed to Iraq in 2018-19. Never came home the same. Depression, anxiety, just closed off, and spent probably about a good year and a half of my life trying to help him through those struggles with treatment and, just trying to bring him back, and there was very good moments. He walked with me. We've advocated. We've traveled across the country together. He's been a part of the Walk for Vets .org mission on many occasions, and it would always find him. It would always come back and find him. And sadly, on January 7th of this year, I got the phone call that he had taken his own life out in Texas. And, you're numb. There's not, I can't even tell you how many families I've talked to across the country that have endured this. Families that I have tried to sit down and put my heart into their pain and to try to take some of it away. And I will tell you that the first thing I thought about, not the first thing, but one of the things I thought about the most is all those families that I looked into their eyes and I tried to feel what they were feeling, and nothing. I could not even imagine to what I was feeling in that moment. That there was some I actually called shortly after, and I apologized. I apologized for ever trying to even remotely put myself in their shoes to understand what it was they were going through. I get it, the support to be there, this and that, but you just don't know until you know, and that was probably the hardest part, was that he was there. He's been out there with me. He's talked to these families, and I've been listening to James, and I've been listening to you, Sean, and right now, and you said something earlier, Sean, that really hit home, is that right now I'm leaning more towards the survivor guilt of things, because my son followed in my footsteps. I enlisted later in life because my son, who was 14 at the time, came to me and said, Dad, I want to join the Army when I grow up. And I had always wanted to join the military, and I was in the process of doing it when I was 19, broke my hand, cut a long story short, never happened. But later in life, I was like, I'm not going to be that hypocrite. My kid's sitting here talking about joining the military. I'm not going to be a hypocrite and try to give them advice on something I know nothing about. Changed the entire direction of my life. Fast forward, here we are. My son followed in my footsteps, and I carry that, and now I have my other son who's in, and Wyatt's holding himself high, and he's keeping himself busy, and he's doing everything that he can do. But James, you mentioned 5 family members, and then everybody else impacted after that, which is accurate. I'm going to say, look, I'm going to tell you what James says is 100% true. Family is directly impacted. After that, you get battle buddies, guys he served with, leadership, friends from school, neighborhood, just everybody reaches out to you, and it turns into over 100 people. And do the math on that. And so that's where I'm at. And Trey, with this happening to Trey, it's pulled something out of me. It says, all right, listen, John, like, you can push through and get back into this. You can take the steps. You can do this, because we don't need this happening anymore. We don't need, I don't ever want a dad getting the phone call I got. I don't want that dad having to go to his ex-wife and kids telling them that their brother and son is dead. And that was the situation. And I also want to bring up another thing, because my son died on January 7th, 2026. And on February 6th of 2026, not even one day short of a month, somebody I didn't know, another father, Nick Accord Sr., lost his son, U.S. Marine, both U.S. Marines, lost his son on February 6, 2026. My son was born on February 24th, 99. His son was born May 12th, 99.
Wow.
And so less than a month, one day short of a month later, another father lost his son who followed into his footsteps. And so I don't want this happening. I'm getting back out there, and I'm doing everything I can to.
How can we best support you in your efforts?
Well, you guys doing it, and that's the thing. The mission is the mission: save lives, help families. And this, what James and what you are doing right now is supporting all of it. You're supporting families like mine because, unfortunately I wasn't able to go to and forgive me, the battle vest, the last presentation. Um, yes, I was in Idaho doing a walk with a buddy of mine. But watching that's what needs to be done. We need to honor the families, but at the same time, we need to educate. We got to look for the signs. We have to, for somebody like myself that has gone through this in a capacity that I never imagined, I can't just stay quiet. I can't just disappear into the crowd and just go away. I gotta do my part, and you guys are doing your part by educating and bringing people together and getting people out there and telling their stories and bringing these families together. That's how we combat, this, and we have to work on communication, obviously.
So when you do the walks and you set up, like, is it typically 20 miles a day that you're doing? Like, how do you set that up?
Well, so it's been a while since I've done a long walk. We did a walk in 2023 from Key West to San Diego, which was a different kind of walk for me. It was kind of a relay walk. So the first 2 walks, I walked every mile, 3,000 miles, over 3,000 miles, every step I took. I didn't exit the walk. I was on the walk. How I did it back then was I just went town to town, meeting with people, talking to people. So one day I would walk 40 miles. Another day I would walk 7 miles. It just all depended where I was going to be meeting people and talking to people and advocating. The last walk we did from Key West to San Diego, which the mission was to take a flag that was presented to walkforvets.org by Flags of Honor Escorts. And we were to designate that flag to a family member, whether Gold Star, Survivor, I chose to honor that flag to a Marine, Stephen Osborne, who took his own life. And we walked that flag from Key West to San Diego and gave it to his son, David Osborne, on the bow of the USS Midway.
Wow, that had to be something. Like, that had to be emotional in itself.
It is. It's, it's tiring. You blue cord, we do things that other people don't do. We put a bag on our back and we just walk for fun. There's a couple videos out there you could watch just about how crazy the infantry is and the things that we do for fun.
That's true.
Everybody that I ever met when I had my first walk, I had like 60 pounds on my back, 50 pounds on my back. You got to be infantry. Yeah, well, no kidding. It's who else does this, But, I met some amazing people. Sean, now you, James, over the years, just advocating. And, we always ask ourselves, and I did this long before Trey's passing, what can I do more? You know, what can I do to do more to help this situation?
Right.
And that's probably like one of our biggest enemies, is that like we're always looking to reach more, do more, and then we end up getting burned out. You know, we got to find our balance, and you guys are finding it. You know, I love what you guys are doing, and I love what Heroes in the Sky Foundation has launched into. I love it, James. Again, I know I can't say it enough, man. Like where you were when we met to where you are now, it's like, whew, love it. I know we can't correspond, and I'll call you.
Well, he can you can speak to that to James a little bit, and you just might not be able to hear him. But, you know,
Right.
But
Can you? I've tried to reset the whole thing twice. It's just not working.
it's crazy.
But
You know, but James, I think, with hearing what John's talking about, and how, what is kind of fueling him now to kind of get back out there from an education standpoint. I wonder if there's something that we can't do. I wonder if there's something that we can't do as a collaboration to kind of help bring more awareness.
mm-hmm.
So that way, and John, I definitely want to speak with you, offline, maybe over the weekend or next week or something like that, just about how we can help support your efforts and what your next walk's going to be, and what you in your planning aspect of it. Because if there's things that we can do to kind of help coordinate some things for you, I would love to do that. But I know that we would also love to be able to do a little bit of a sponsorship, if possible, if you don't mind. Just to kind of help you out with some of that.
Yeah, so I do have a walk. And mind you, I am getting back into this, so it does take with life, and my other half, who's, by the way, my other half is amazing, because I forgot my red shirt, I forgot my charger, and I think in like 11 minutes, I sent her a text, and she drove it here, and I was like, phew, okay, thank you, but I am planning a walk.
I think all three of us have amazing other halves.
July 4th, I'm doing a walk on Hilton Head Island, doing a beach walk. I did one last year. I did it on June 14th on the Army's birthday. And this year I'm kind of doing it in collaboration with the 250, and, just honoring all veterans that have served our country in capacity over those 250 years. I did talk to James about that a little bit. We talked about, maybe working together and doing something there. I'm still working out. I got most of the details for that planned out, but it is going to be July 4th. I think I said June, July 4th.
Oh, you said July 4th. Yeah.
Oh, did I? Okay. But anybody's invited to that. There's one thing I will tell you is look, I'm not about fundraising, right? So like Walk for Vets, I'm not a nonprofit. I will probably never be a nonprofit, because that's just not how I roll, but there's never no fees. You never have to pay to come walk with us, and that's the biggest thing. That's just my thing. It'll never be a thing. You come out, you show up, you do the walk, you're there, you're on the mission, and I'm just facilitating it. I'm just making it come together. And I always tell veterans, because they'll call me up, oh, thanks, man, this, that. Listen, you came out. You made the choice. You did the work to get off of your couch or wherever you were at to come out and be a part of this mission. And I'm definitely never going to charge anybody to be a part of that. That's just the thing. So,
but there are some costs. There's food.
No, there is.
There is
definitely there is.
That we can help. That I would like to at least, we'll get together. Let's talk about how, what you need, for the 4th. I know that we'd be happy on behalf of Nautical Salute, James and I both, to do something to kind of just make sure that you're taken care of, that you can have a few things, even if it's to help other veterans, that may come out and join you. So,
well, if you guys want to get your flip flops, let's go for a walk.
Flip flops, I go barefoot, but yeah. But
yeah, I mean, you guys, I love what you guys are doing, and I love for you guys to be a part of it. And anything that we have going on, my buddy Jason Hannard's a Navy vet. He actually started walking with me in Texas on my first walk. We've walked, I can't even tell you how many miles together. He does an annual walk in Nebraska. So we'll be up there in September doing a walk across his home county up in Nebraska. Like, it's the middle of nowhere. There's nowhere, and then there's his county
Nowhere.
in Nebraska.
Then there's nowhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like no light, no street light, nowhere.
I think his town had like 200 people in it. I'm like, dude, like, there's a post office and that's it,
Yeah.
But he's been a brother to me, and I love him, and he's always been there for me. Probably the second person I talked to when I found out about Trey, because I was definitely lost, and that's one thing I just want to say is that, like, pay attention to your people, be there, because I mean, I have amazing friends, and what's funny is I've learned that James is so connected in things over the last few days that, like, I didn't even realize James connected in, and people are like, oh yeah, James Collins, oh, here's this guy, oh yeah, I know that guy, oh yeah. So now I'm like, like, how do you know James? Like, I'm getting back into this, and James is already like paved the way.
You know what it is? He's got the gift of gab.
Listen, it's I love what I do. I will tell you that walking gets a little bit harder as you get older. High mileage walking, knees are shot, back shot, everything's falling apart. But I'll probably fall over on the side of a road somewhere.
Hey. Hopefully at some point in my life, much later on, I can rest easy doing what I love.
Hey, I will tell you, even though it wears you down, and everybody that knows me, including my other half, when I do this, when I'm out there advocating, walking, I'm doing what I love. It changes my whole behavior, my whole dynamic. It's what I love, it's what I do. And it's been my cause, what drives me to keep going. It changes all the time. Our drive changes all the time. Our, why we're doing this, the why always changes. And I'm just going to keep plugging along.
Hey, Sean, real quick. I know you can hear me. He can't. I am going to leave the studio, and hopefully it does not end the stream. If it does, we'll just bring him back in.
All right. Not a problem.
Because it says I can leave the studio while it's live, and it's not going to mess it up.
All right, and then you should be able to come back in because
because you're running it. So
yeah. And then we're gonna be wrapping up here shortly, anyways. So why don't you go ahead and do it now, so then we can kind of figure it out.
Yeah, I'm doing it right now just in case it does it.
Let's test. We're going to test the waters. James is going to exit screen left and out of the system and come back in. So hopefully when he comes back in, he's loud and clear. So being infantry, you went to Fort Benning.
Yep.
I was Delta 254. Yep.
Oh man, I'm telling you, I don't remember much of it, even at 34. I don't remember like much of Benning, other than it was just nonstop. And my drill sergeants, oh my goodness, they every day just give me grief. Give me grief.
Yeah, so I was at Delta 254, and that was a lot of fun. Adding him back in. All right.
Can you hear me now?
Nope.
No, he still can't. Dude, it's the plague. It's like the plague.
I'm in a new browser too, so I wonder if I have no idea.
I don't know. It's crazy. But yeah, John, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your story and what you're doing. And it's going to take all of us to continue to fight this fight together. And however possible, we can spread what you're doing as well. To be an advocate and to be a voice for not only, the ones that are no longer here, but also the families that are still here, navigating their new normal. That beacon of light, I just want you to know you definitely are a beacon of light, and I am honored and grateful to have met you. And you're kind of stuck with us now. You've already been stuck with James a little bit, so you're kind of stuck with me, my fellow blue cord.
That's it. Yeah. Hey, infantry runs deep.
Yep. And so we got quite a few other people in the Jess is in the comments, and she says, we appreciate you, John. And
hey, Jess.
We've got Cruz, we've got Combat Kitchen, which is Rich. He also helps us out on with some clips and different things that we do. We've got Michael, aka Boomer, and we've got several other people watching, but definitely get me the information so we can kind of push that out there too. And just wow, this has been a heavy but great episode. And James, do you want to say anything before we get ready to close this out? Or in John?
Yeah,
anything?
I'll let him. Speaking that he can't hear me. I'll let him close out in a second, but I just want to. And can the people in the comments hear me? Jess, can you hear me?
Yeah, they can.
Okay, so I just want to say I had a call with John because we did that ceremony, and I had some people come up to me complaining that the ceremony didn't focus on the families enough, but then it was more about education and statistics than it was the families. And so I had the conversations with the families, and I said, hey, how do you really feel about this? And John was one of the first people I called, and he said, I would rather you spend 10 to 15 minutes, on our loved ones and spend the other 45 minutes educating so we can reduce the number of names we're adding to these vests. And so I kind of took that as a positive impact. And, John's always been that one person I know if I call, he's going to tell me the truth. And so that's what you can appreciate about people. And
so John James says the one thing he can absolutely appreciate about you is you're not afraid to tell him the truth, so about what you think, about what you feel about something that's happening or going on. So, he definitely always appreciates that.
Yeah, and it's crazy.
That's some people love me for that. Some people hate me for that, but it's just the way it is.
Yeah. It's crazy to think too.
I appreciate James reaching out, because a lot of times, even for myself, we gotta get lost in what we're doing, and, getting that, other opinion, not afraid to ask, hey man, what can I do? This, that, blah, blah, blah. It always makes the situation better. And I do that all the time. And in closing, I just want to say thank you to everybody that ever has walked with me, walked with Walk for Vets, everybody that has supported James and Sean and everybody out there that's trying to combat this, veteran suicide, first responder suicide, just suicide in general. Everybody that's out there focusing on mental health, kudos to you, and thank you for everything that you do. Follow us. You're always on the mission. Everybody's always welcome. So love you all.
Awesome. All right, brother, I'm going to drop you down, and we're going to get ready to close this out. And wow, just stick around.
Thanks.
All right.
Okay.
Got to figure out how to get this back here. There we go.
I don't know why he can't hear me, but everyone else can.
Yeah.
I have it makes no sense to me.
Can he hear you now? That would be insane. I think he's going to text you, but I think he can hear you. He still can't hear you. I don't know. That's the craziest thing.
I have no idea. I'm getting good sound from everybody else. We had sound before we brought in. I had thought about taking him out of the lobby and bringing him back in to see if it was a connection on his side, because I've checked all the connections on my side and everybody could hear me.
This goes back to my point where I think we need to bring people into the lobby prior to us going live.
Yeah.
Kind of help combat that. But let's go ahead and wrap this up. Thank our sponsors and play our outro. And that will,
Yeah, and I just want to touch on something John said. He's listening probably. It's crazy to
he
think.
Can't hear you.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that, you know, back in 2018, 2019, I too was 30 seconds from pulling a trigger and self-destructing, and now it's almost like I have a renewed purpose because, like you said, there's so many people that know the name or know what Heroes in the Sky, what we represent, and I never thought I would ever be anyone that people knew, much less respected, ever. Like, because I didn't even think I had the self-worth to even be alive, and now there's people that listen to, that we educate nationwide, and people listen, and people know who I am and what we do in states all across the United States, and it's the connections that we're able to make too. But the big thing here is we couldn't do this without like organizations like John, organizations like Nautical Salute, you know, those organizations, because we can't do this alone. Our outreach amplifies when I connect my following, you connect your following, and we combine them together. And then the new people we meet, we collab with them and we use their following to reach more people. So we are constantly, you know, making an impact, and we always end with some special stuff, right? I just want to we end with some statistics before we go to our sponsors, right? So last time we had someone in our comment section help us with some numbers, but we want to focus tonight on veteran suicide, and just because that unfortunately John has become a member of that club that no one has to be part of, and that education piece that we try to push. So we lose 44 veterans a day at a minimum, and then like you said, out of that 44, we're gonna, so you know, you have to multiply that times 5 because 5 family members are going to be affected. So you say 44 times 5, it gives you 29,700. And then that's a day, right?
Yep.
So then we have to go to the year. So if we're losing close to 30,000 people, if veteran suicide is affecting 30,000 people a day, that means in a year, veteran suicide would have 10 million people. And that's just for veterans. That's where we haven't broken into the plane of first responders, and the true first responders are families that carry on the legacy. They have to deal with the grief in our absence. So it's huge for us that we are becoming well known. We're able to connect with organizations like Nautical Salute and partner with these close organizations, walkforvets.org, and everybody else that have made this possible for us. Because anyone that knows you and I know we don't do this for us. This has never been about clout for me. It's never been about what benefits me, and it never will be. It will always be about the people we can touch and the people I impact, the families that I impact, and I challenge, and if anybody that knows me that's close to me, if I ever lose sight of that, bring me back to reality and say, hey, this is why you're really doing this.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, we'll close out. Thank you, John. I know you can't hear us, but thank you so much for being here, telling your story, having the courage to talk about the loss of your son to suicide. And our thoughts and prayers are with you. And if we can do anything, you just let us know. But so we want to thank the American Legion Post 135 for being our title sponsor. They are American Legion Post 135. They are located in historic downtown Savannah at 1108 Bull Street. They are a member of the largest veteran service organization in the nation. They were founded on the principles of service to our veterans and to our community, state, and nation. Their membership is open to any veteran who has served honorably and to active duty service members. They are home to the local 1110, Betty Bombers, Brighter Day, Centennial Bean, Lee Chai, and their bar is open to the public. So they're going to hold several events throughout the year where that bar is open to the public. where you can rent the space. So if you want to hold a function in beautiful downtown Savannah, then contact our friends at the American Legion, Commander Mike Ball, his officers in the American Legion, the Legionnaires, and they'll take care of you.
Awesome.
So,
Thank you guys on behalf of Nautical Salute and our team and everything for allowing us, James, to be part of this with you, and for everything that we're doing just to make veterans' lives and family members' lives better. So.
Yeah, it's impact. It's together. We can, Heroes in the Sky can achieve so much as an individual organization, but if we collectively work with Nautical Salute, and then we start working with other organizations that have the same moral compass that we do, that reducing all the clout and doing it for a genuine purpose, then why shouldn't we?
Hey, real quick on the outro, do we have the spoken word? Are we going to play that on the outro, or because I know I thought we might play that earlier, but if we can play that on the end, that might be a nice little uplifting way to kind of close this out as well, if we still have it available.
Let me see. So it has to be. I wonder if it's even in here.
Don't know.
Because I'm looking now. I think it's something we need to look into, because I don't think the outro, I think they both have to be like a minute, and some there's like restrictions to them.
Right.
So we're going to have to create. We're probably going to have to create one just for this. And
yeah, we would probably do an outro for that about a minute and a half or whatever it is.
Yeah, and we were already talking about that, what that needed to look like before we went live. So I'm pretty sure that'll be we'll have that pretty soon.
Absolutely. All right. So let's take it away. And
so, yeah, we'll close it out. And John, if you can hear us, if not, we'll send a message. Once we end this, I want to see if I can figure out what the heck's going on.
Yep.
So hang tight, John. If you can hear us, hang tight. Stay in the lobby. The last thing I do want to say is, if you are interested in telling your story, if you are a family member, if you run an organization that actively makes a difference in veterans and first responders' lives, and you want to be a guest on this show, all you have to do is email james@heroesinthesky.org or Sean@heroesinthesky.org and reach out to us, because we would love to have you on the show, just like we had John. We just want to make sure that we give you the chance to articulate the challenges that you've dealt with, but also spread some positivity about how you got through what you did, so if other people listening might have a better life.
Gotcha. He can hear. John can hear you on his phone. So
really,
because he's watching the live from his phone.
Okay. So I'm broadcasting to live. He just can't hear me when he's in the studio. Okay.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, I think that's it, Sean. Well, thank you to American Legion. Thank you, John Ring. Thank you, Nautical Salute. Thank you, Combat Kitchen. Thank you, everyone who came in tonight and listened to us. Do us a favor, share, circulate, like, help us build that algorithm and get out there. We appreciate you.
And thanks to Jennifer, who's our in-house resident.
Yes.
Expert on keeping us straight.
Yeah. Yes. Jennifer Grossman is a member of our board. And yes, all of the videos that you see put out on YouTube and podcast, she does all the editing. She does all the background work. She does a phenomenal job. So we got to make sure we give her kudos for everything she does, that the tireless work that she does, so families can be heard and we can advocate for them.
All right. Until next time.
Yeah. Tune in later.